Well, welcome everyone. I'm really delighted to have you all here. I was just going to start off giving you a bit of background about myself. So I actually started my work in life as an architectural technician, so it's really good to have the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists here. And I actually studied at RGU as well, did my HNC there, and then went on to do a building surveying degree. So my background is I'm a building surveyor. I've been with the Trust now for coming up to 10 years. I joined as their estate manager back in 2014 and then moved to the position of chief executive about 3 years ago. So I was heavily involved in the projects that we're going to talk about today. And Gilbert Valentine is my replacement in the estate manager role. So Gilbert will do a bit of talking as well around, particularly around the retrofit project we're going to have a look at as well. So prior to being here, I was at Stirling University for 18 years in their estate management. So you know, I've been in estate management for quite a long time now. But I think what we're really looking to talk about today is the technical and social elements of our estate, particularly our housing. And we're going to focus on our original houses, which were built in the 1920s, but also in our estate expansion that was completed 4 years ago now, 2020, and just how the whole estate has evolved into what we now call the Gannochy Lifetime Neighbourhood. So I'll just give a bit of history to the Trust, for those of you who don't know about us. So the Trust was founded in 1937 by Arthur Bell. He was famous for Bell's Whisky. He took the company over from his father and really grew the business massively. He was native to Perth, and he established the Trust in 1937, and he said for certain charitable purposes for the benefit of Perth and the wider Perth area. But the main focus of the trust deed, the original trust deed that he set up, was the management of the estate. So that was his primary focus for the Trust, was the estate. But he also left the Trust with shares in Bell's Whisky. And the trust deed said that any surplus from the shares or from running the estate should be given to local charities. And over the years, the Trust has divested the Bell's shares. Well, they became shares in Guinness and then shares in Diageo. And then the Trust has expanded the investment portfolio. We don't have any Diageo shares anymore. But our investments are now worth about 175 million. So the income from the investments allows us to distribute about between 5 and 6 million a year to mostly to local charities. So 75% of our investment income goes to local charities, and 25% goes to the rest of Scotland. So there's two main parts of the Trust now. There's the managing the estate, and there's the grant giving as well. So that's the background to the Trust overall. In terms of our estate, this is a map of all the red shows all the land that we own. So it's about 700 acres that AK Bell bought over the years and left to the Trust. And it starts at the top with Quarry Mill Woodland Park, which is what it says in the tin. It's a woodland park for the use of local people. Then we have a wee bit of agricultural land, and then this is where we are. This is the office here, and we have the cricket pitches and pavilion, because AK Bell was a massive cricket fan, and he played cricket all his life, and he built the cricket pavilion and the pitches for the people of Perth. And then Kincarthy House, which you may have seen on the left as you're walking in, that was AK Bell's house, and then he left, or his wife left that to the Trust to develop a care home, so that's now run as a care home. Then over the road we've got our main housing, the original estate, then our estate expansion, and then our ground goes all the way up to Knoll Hill. Most of that's one farm, which is tenanted, and the same tenants have been in, or the same family have been in there since the Trust bought it. And we have a small hill farm at the top of the estate as well, and a wee bit of woodland up at Knoll Hill as well. So that's the extent of what we own.
Is that the extent of the tour today?
We're not going to do all of it today, you'll be pleased to hear. Yeah, we'll probably stick to the housing. So I just want to talk a wee bit about, I guess, AK Bell's legacy and ethos, because it really underpins everything that we now do in terms of how we manage our estate and what we've done with our new houses that we built and what we're likely to do going forward. So the original 149 houses were built between 1923 and 1931. So that was before he set up the trust. He funded the estate from his own income, his own money, his own wealth. And he built the houses between 1923 and 1931. It doesn't say in the trust deed why he built them or who he built them for, but there are quotes from him in various documents where he said he built them for the deserving working people of Perth. So they weren't necessarily built for Bell's whisky employees. They were just built for people that he considered, deserved a good house. And we still have the rent books from when the trust was set up. So there were teachers and artists and plumbers and plasterers. There's quite a range of tenants. And I guess the key features of the original houses were just the high quality of the design and the materials that he used. There's a picture of one of the houses there. They were all built in red sandstone with the slate roofs. And the designs are all slightly different, so every house has got its own, not every house is different, but there's a lot of different house types around the estate. Just little tweaks that were made here and there to the houses. So they were built to a very high quality, and when we open them up now, when we're refurbishing them, if you go under the floors or up in the roof, they're still like the day they were built. They were built to such high quality. But another big focus for A.K. Bell was ventilation and outside space. He was very sort of keen on people getting outside, getting outdoors. He was very, very interested in sport, cricket in particular, but sport in general. So the houses are all set on really large plots so that their tenants had lots of space to get out and about. They all face southwest because he wanted to maximise natural daylight into the living spaces. So regardless of where a house sits in relation to the street, the living space will always face southwest. So some of the designs, were sort of flipped around so that he could do that. But ventilation was a big thing for him. So there's a picture of the plaque there that was in every house when they were built. So every house had that plaque up in its hallway. And it's effectively saying that tenants should open their windows, ventilate the house, and even in the winter they should have their windows open, and they should buy more bedclothes if they're cold, because it's better to be cold and healthy rather than warm and get ill. So these were the days before the NHS, so obviously it was more of an issue when people got ill. So that's, and has always been a big thing for the trust is getting home to our tenants the need to ventilate their house as well. And there are stories that A.K. Bell used to walk around the estate before he went to work with his chauffeur behind him in the car, sort of checking that folk had their windows open. And if they didn't, he would go and knock on their doors and say, "Go on, get your windows open." So, so that's, and that has fed through into our designs for what we've done recently. Since the original houses were built, we've had more development over the years. So in the 70s, 80s and 90s, we built 3 developments of sheltered housing, and that was kind of to recognise some of those original tenants, because many of our tenants stay in the trust for all their lives. So there were tenants who perhaps moved in, in the 30s, 40s, who were starting to get older, didn't need a 3-bedroom house. So the trust built sheltered housing in 3 phases. So we've now got 63 sheltered houses, which are purely for Gannochy Trust tenants who wish to downsize and move to a smaller house. So that kind of started that process of the estate expanding into something else, not just houses for families. And then
when were they built?
In 3 phases: 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. So there are 3 phases, roughly of 20 houses per phase, which brings us up to the 63 we've got now. And then so it was the Trust's 75th anniversary in 2012, and the trustees decided to celebrate that they would develop some new housing, and the idea was to build 50 more houses. And that's where then we got involved with Anders Bell Christie to develop a master plan for the estate, and that's where the concept of a kind of lifetime neighbourhood came. I mean, we'd already started that concept because of the way that the trust operates and the fact that we had started to build sheltered housing, but I think that really crystallised the idea as we worked through the master plan and thinking about, what we had. That really kind of crystallised that into a thing, I guess, where we started calling it a lifetime neighbourhood. So, in terms of what that means to us, this is just what it means to the Gannochy Trust. That might mean different things to different people. I guess the first thing is the fact that we were looking to have a diverse range of house types and styles. So although we had the 3-bedroom houses and the sheltered housing, there were still gaps in what we provided. So particularly for like young families, it was very difficult for a young family to get a Gannochy house, because if they only had one child, we have 3-bedroom houses and we don't want to see them under occupied, so it tended to be larger families. So we wanted to provide for both young families coming into the estate, but perhaps people as they get older not wanting to go to sheltered housing but move to something smaller. So that was what we felt was needed. The next point there is this idea of providing healthy homes, and it goes back to the ventilation and the AK Bell's focus on indoor air quality and getting outside as well. So we wanted to carry that ethos through, and we'll go into more technical detail later on. But so our focus was on healthy homes, not necessarily on. We wanted them to be efficient homes, but the top priority was that they were healthy homes. So that kind of made some of the decisions, or drove some of the decisions that we made. We wanted to continue the idea of high quality design, because in some of the tenant engagement that we did as part of the master planning process, that came out that people felt like they were part of a community. They really appreciated the quality of the space, the quality of the surrounding area. So we were very kind of keen that we carried that on. And then we wanted our houses to be flexible for long-term occupation, and also thinking about accessibility and making the houses and the estate dementia friendly. So there was a whole range of things that we wanted to build into design for that, and we'll explain some of that as we walk around, and I'm sure Rowena and Caroline will talk about that as part of the design development as well. And then finally, that whole idea of outdoor space and AK Bell's focus on people being able to get outdoors. We wanted to kind of sort of continue that on and think about, well, I guess we were thinking about it from being inside the house and being able to see out, through to being able to get outside the house, maybe just around the house, and then into the garden, and then into spaces within the housing, and then into the wider estate as well. So that was all part of how we were trying to design the houses and the estate around it. So that's kind of some of the key characteristics that we were trying to build into the design as we went forward, and we'll go into the detail of that as we walk around, as I say. So just the last thing from me really is, so the estate was finished in 2020, it got a bit delayed because of COVID, and we put it forward for a number of awards, and that not necessarily to get awards, but we wanted to promote it and hopefully get other people in the industry interested in what we're doing here, and see if some of the ideas that we were putting forward that could be included in other housing developments. So it was mostly Anderson Bell Christie, to be fair, that did all the work to go in for the awards. But I think the one that I was certainly most pleased with was we won the Selwyn Goldsmith Award for Universal Design, which is a UK-wide award. And it's exactly what we were trying to do. We were trying to create a kind of a housing development that was a lifetime neighbourhood. So, there was lots of nice awards to get, but I think that was the one. And I remember when I was studying, Selwyn Goldsmith's book was always the one you went to when you wanted information about how to design for accessibility. So I think that was really pleasing. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm happy to answer any questions now. But I think, we want to get out and have a look. I think it's, I can talk a lot, but it's better to see it on the ground. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions. If not, we will. So we'll go and have a walk around. We'll show you some of the green spaces we've got. We'll take you to one of the new houses, and then we'll go into one of our original houses that we're currently retrofitting. And I guess actually one thing I haven't mentioned is a key element in everything that we do is that we try and then monitor what we're doing to see if actually what we've designed is delivering what we want it to deliver. So Janice has been working with us from Glasgow School of Art to do some monitoring of the new houses to see if they're as healthy as we hoped they were going to be, if they're as efficient as we hoped they were going to be. But sorry, they're not passive house, no. And we did talk about that as part of the design process. But as I say, our focus was on healthy rather than efficiency. So, and I was concerned about passive house. You have to be bought into the principle, I think. And given these houses are for rent, we felt it was probably a step too far. So we're monitoring it at the minute to see how they're going. But also in our retrofit program as well, we've monitored the work that we've done there to see how that has performed. We started our current specification in 2014, but we're actually now looking at an enhanced retrofit specification to try and improve. And Gilbert can maybe say a bit about that as we're walking around. We're just about to try a couple of pilots to see how that works, and then we'll monitor those for a couple of years before we roll it out.
Yeah, but I think the big thing is we're looking at air source, heat pumps, but principally air source heat pumps, and they've got suspended timber ground floors. So that's one of the issues, but that's kind of key issue that we need to look at.
Would you like to see that, please? It's suspended timber floors are like not many houses done like that.
No, I know. Yeah.
Exactly, that's a challenge. So we're looking at making the complete thermal barriers and the underflow heating above that with no penetrations from electrical pipe work services, air tightness, and we'll do air tightness checks and tests to make sure that we get that. But we're engaging with doing a buildability thing with the contractors. We have other term contractors, and we're going through a process to make sure there's buy-in there so that it gets done properly. That's the problem.
Was there any consideration for ground source heat pumps and like small heat networks instead of air source heat pumps?
We've kind of got approval to do air source and ground source. Okay. We're going with the air source because it'll obviously be more economic. That's the two heat sources that we're looking at.
We've got a whole menu of things that we're choosing from at the minute to see how they work, and we're starting with the least expensive. I say least expensive, but we think one house is going to cost us 140,000 to completely refurbish and bring up to the standards we're trying to get it to. So, it's pretty expensive, and if we then add on a ground source heat pump onto that or MVHR onto that, then the prices, escalate. So. Oh yeah, I mean that's not just the insulation work. It's
no, absolutely.
Rewiring kitchens, bathrooms, everything. Because we've had the debate about it's very expensive.
Yeah. But I think that just proves the point that retrofit is not cheap. No. So we need to evaluate what we can and cannot do and what is suitable for that particular house or for the occupants for the situation. In terms of ground source heat pumps, maybe because it's a shared network, there is a benefit of it to some extent for a managed place like this. But as you say, you're trying things out and learning from it, which is absolutely fantastic.
We do have the big gardens which would actually facilitate ground source slinkies, but I think if we can afford to, we would prefer to go borehole because it's far better. The V88 in Dundee is actually powered by 200 metre deep boreholes, 36 of them. So it works, and we spoke to the V88 and they're happy with it. So it's expensive. That's the big difficulty. But this is the thing. Achy Bell, when he built the houses, they were 3 times the cost of local authority housing. So he knows quality doesn't come cheap.
Yes.
He's no longer here, but so that kind of principle, we're well aware of things that will last long. This is not really cheap.
It's longevity.
Sorry?
It's longevity in design.
Yes, it's exactly, yeah.
Although the upfront cost is higher, but the running cost is not over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.